Bright Ideas from the Green Chair spotlights Central Wisconsin and the breakthroughs, innovations, and inspirations that make our state a very special place. This program is dedicated to Bob Williams, a lifelong Central Wisconsin resident. From his public relations office in Stevens Point, Bob's bright ideas moved across the geographic, ethnic, economic, cultural, and political landscapes. His genius helped to elect a governor, build businesses, grow medical research, improve patient care, nurture a university, guard the environment, and inspire many to achieve their fullest potential. Like the fast-moving rivers of central Wisconsin, Bob Williams was uninhibited in his presentation of ideas, large and small. This despite a lifelong battle with debilitating polio that, while limiting his physical abilities, never diminished his will to move Wisconsin ever forward. From a well-worn green leather chair in Bob's office, Wisconsin Innovation was created in partnership with some of the state's most respected leaders in politics, business, education, and healthcare. Prior to his passing, Bob gave his storied green chair to longtime friend, business leader, and philanthropist John Noel. Residing now in John's home office along the Wisconsin River just outside of Stevens Point, the Green Chair welcomes yet another generation of bright ideas, high ideals, and strong spirit. Hello, I'm John Lobbs, here with another edition of Bright Ideas from the Green Chair for WisconsinEye, a show which highlights the brightest ideas and people of central Wisconsin. Here with me today is Dr. Bernie Patterson, Chancellor at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, as our special guest. Dr. Patterson has over 40 years of higher educational administrative experience in Oklahoma and Georgia and Wisconsin, a PhD in criminology, and you've been Chancellor here since 2010. Welcome to the Green Chair.
Thank you very much, John. I'm happy to be here, particularly in John and Patty's home, and sitting in this particular chair. I knew Bob Williams as a very good friend, and I've heard many stories about this chair and how it got passed from Bob to John, and now he's sharing it with the community. I think that's wonderful.
Let's talk about the university. It was founded in 1894. It is the Star of the North in Wisconsin's higher educational system. Lee Sherman Dreyfus had this grand idea called the Ruralplex, in which the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point would be the hub of education in central Wisconsin, and so it has become. 20% of your students study abroad. You've been recognized by the Princeton Review consistently as one of the greenest campuses in the country. You've got a nationally recognized College of Natural Resources. Give us an overview of the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point, its campus, its place in the university system here.
We're one of the 11 comprehensive campuses in the UW system. We're about 7,700 students, a few more than that actually, but it's so much more than just a collection of buildings and students gathering for class. This is a place where 48% of our students are the first in their families to go to college. That's significant. And I know something about that because my sister and I were the first in our family to graduate high school. So when you go off on a new adventure and you're successful and then graduation comes, imagine the family celebration. It's like a wedding in a family. If you could come to commencement sometime, I think you'd get that feeling. We're a place where people come to start their lives, to start their careers. Just ask Mike Rowan, the new president and CEO and chairman of the board of 3M Company. He got his start at UW Stevens Point. We have students on Broadway today who got their start on this campus in Stevens Point. It is a place that beckons for students to come, and when you walk on campus, you get this feeling that it's the right spot, the right place, the right time. Our faculty and our staff are the most dedicated with whom I've ever worked in higher education. You can walk down the halls on a Friday afternoon and you'll find faculty talking with each other about teaching. You'll find students in their offices. You'll find learning happening in and out of the classroom. We are a unique campus, I think, and it's primarily because of our faculty and our staff and our students and the community in which we're located and our alums and our supporters across central Wisconsin.
Can you give me a demographic picture of the student body? 7,800 students, male, female, in-state, out-of-state?
We are about 54% female. About 14% of our students come from outside of Wisconsin. That means other states as well as international students. We could go up to 25% by board policy. And of course, we'd like to increase that number. We'd particularly like to increase the number of international students because they add so much value and richness to the campus experience. And so, but it's a challenge because there's a lot of competition, even in recruiting international students as well.
You mentioned the Green Chair and the Bright Ideas, and Bob. What a great idea for the Green Chair. What better place to have a college of natural resources? It was here that the very first conservation major was started in the country in 1946. In 1994, it became a college.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about this signature college.
Oh my gosh. We have over 1,200 students majoring in one of the various areas in the College of Natural Resources. That includes fisheries and wildlife and water and soils and waste management and human ecology. All of these are available majors in the College of Natural Resources. It really does have a national reputation. Our dean is heavily involved at the national level. At the state level, she served, I think, 11 years, I believe it was, on the Department of Natural Resources Board. She's now involved at the national level. She's been appointed to the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Commission on Hunting and Wildlife Heritage. She is a leader in natural resources and often described as one of the most influential women in conservation and natural resources in the country. To give you an example, our recent gift a couple of years ago of $2 million from two gentlemen who wanted to invest in our campus in an endowed faculty position, had never attended school here, had never been to the campus, but they made that gift, $2 million, based solely on the reputation of the College of Natural Resources. Now that says a lot right there. Absolutely says a lot. But we're a lot more than just the College of Natural Resources. Our School of Business is accredited by AACSB. That may sound just like higher ed talk, but when you understand that means we're now rated in the top 20% of business schools in the country, it takes on a different meaning. Over in fine arts across campus, all four of our areas, dance, theater, music, and art, are all accredited. Again, you might say, well, so what? Until you know that only two universities in this state hold that distinction. University at Madison and at Stevens Point. And only 30 universities across the country out of 4,600 colleges and universities have that distinction. So we've got a lot of things going on, some very positive things happening at the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point.
I know you needed to get in the Chamber of Commerce pitch for those other schools. But you mentioned Dr. Christine Thomas is her name.
Absolutely.
Your dean. She's a longtime teacher here, and she's been dean for a while. But when in my research for the show, one thing that stuck out for me was she created a program called Becoming an Outdoors Woman. Mm-hmm. And with her background, this was not a pandering thing like we might have seen in the 50s towards women. Tell me about that program.
It is an opportunity for women of all ages to come and learn more about the outdoors. They talk about fishing, and they have actually go out and fish. They hunt. They have firearms instruction. They talk about conservation. They talk about natural resources. And this is typically offered at nights and on weekends. And it's now offered in 38 states and in 6 provinces in Canada. That's how far this has grown. And it started with Christine Thomas and the College of Natural Resources right here in Stevens Point.
Well, that's a bright idea for the green chair.
You betcha. It's the kind of thing that I want my granddaughters to do.
The College of Natural Resources also has a very unique laboratory, the Schmeickel Reserve.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about that.
It's about 2/3 of our campus. It makes up about 280 acres. And it's a natural reserve, 20 plus miles of hiking trails, a 24-acre lake, Lake Jonas, named for former president at Century Insurance. And every college in the university, just not natural resources, uses it in some fashion for their instruction and opportunities for students to get hands-on experiences. In my earlier career, I ran the largest internship program at my university, so I really appreciate the hands-on, real-world experiences that we keep wanting to enhance for our students, and that's a great laboratory. But they have just not Schmeickel Reserve, they also have a facility that we call Tree Haven, which is about 70 miles north of campus, and it's 1,000 acres of a reserve for this same purpose. And it has also a compound of classrooms, residence halls, and dining facilities, all at Tree Haven. That's also used for public education, continuing education courses. It's quite active as well as Schmeickel.
I want to switch gears here. There's been some restructuring going on in the university system. Mm-hmm. That's affected the university here in Stevens Point with the 2-year campuses. I myself am an alum.
You're an alum from Marathon County, aren't you?
Marathon County campus, but also Marshfield. The two, well, not for me also Marshfield, but Marshfield and the Marathon County campus have now, I don't know quite how to say it, come under the wing of the mothership here at Stevens Point. Why was that restructuring done?
Well, hopefully it's not going to save any money. That we know. All 3 campuses, and just not these 3 campuses, but many campuses across the state, have been experiencing enrollment challenges. At Stevens Point, we're down about 20% over the last 6 or so years. Marathon, or now Wausau campus, is been down for the last several years as well, and so is Marshfield. Now, there are a number of factors that contribute to this situation. One is that the demographics are quite challenging in Wisconsin. There are fewer students in high schools. And so with fewer students in high school, there's fewer students going on to higher education. That's a pretty easy one to predict, actually. It's pretty easy to count noses in kindergarten and understand how many you're going to have in high school, or graduating from high school 12 years later. Demographics, and they particularly seem to be a greater issue in central Wisconsin than, say, down in the southeastern part of the state. So demographics is one. Secondly, we have a very strong economy in this country, which is a wonderful thing. And jobs are growing here, and the economy is growing in Wisconsin. But as a national trend, students tend to go to work when the economy is strong and not go to school. And the converse is true as well. When the economy gets soft, people lose their jobs or leave and go to school when they can't go to work. So the economy is a second driving factor. Third, there's competition. When the pool of students shrinks, the competition will naturally increase. And then at the Stevens Point campus, we have an interesting phenomenon going on. We have increased our 4-year graduation rate by 10 points in the last few years. That means students are graduating faster. It means they're getting the 4-year degree without going for an extra 1, 2, or 3 or more semesters, which is the wonderful thing. They're having less student debt. They're getting out in the workforce where we need them desperately, and they're moving out of mom and dad's basement. So this is a win-win for everybody, except it has a pretty devastating impact on our financial situation because we have fewer students as a result. Now, we're doing this for the right reasons, but nevertheless, we have to recognize the consequences of that success.
Is it envisioned that these two-year campuses will become direct feeders to Stevens Point?
They already have been.
Will the students be able to matriculate anywhere within the system?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Students can transfer within the system today, and they could 2 years ago before the reorganization with the two-year colleges. So that's certainly still possible. You can go to the Wausau campus, the Marshville campus, and start there for 2 years and transfer directly to Madison. And so that's still a possibility, always will be. For coming to Point, more students from those two campuses came to Point than anywhere else already. Now, as soon as we get all the details of the systems worked out and aligned, it won't even be a transfer because there already are students at the university. So it will be even more seamless, if that's possible, than what it used to be.
It does sort of sound like it really fits Lee Dreyfus's original idea of the rural plex, where Stevens Point was the hub.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. Stevens Point, Wausau, Marshville, Rapids, and Point. Now, I sometimes compare ourselves to Fox Valley. I think Fox Valley has done a really good job in organizing themselves, in marketing themselves. We've been a little more diversified in central Wisconsin, and I think our challenge is to help these communities come together and see it from just not an individual perspective at Wausau or Marshville or Rapids or Point, but how can we look at our economic growth situation collectively as a region, like they have done very successfully over the Fox Valley.
You've noted some tough things. You've had enrollment declines of 20% over the last 10 years. There have been budget cuts, tuition freezes. Bubbling up from all this, you've come up with, you and your staff have come up with this new idea, a bright idea from Bob's green chair, about a total restructuring for a 21st century regional university. Can you explain what this is all about?
What we are imagining today is a new kind of regional university for the 21st century. I have to say that if there was ever a time in our history where our world needs graduates who can think critically, think creatively, work in teams, problem solve, communicate clearly and persuasively, both orally and in writing, who understand and appreciate the multidisciplinary world in which we live, and the global economy in which we're all tied, to recognize and be able to resolve an ethical dilemma when they see one. If there's ever a time in our history where those characteristics are needed in our graduates, that time is now. That time is now. And those are the skills and the abilities one obtains by the study and the practice of the liberal arts. Now, I know some have tried to say we're doing away with the liberal arts at Stevens Point. That could not be further from the truth. We're going to continue to teach English and history and geography and political science. All the humanities are going to continue to be offered at Stevens Point. It doesn't mean that we necessarily will have a major in each of those areas. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. That's still being decided. But it's not appropriate, I don't think, to conflate the idea of a major with preparing students in the liberal arts. It's a false dichotomy to suggest that you're either prepared with a liberal education or you're trained for technical skills for a particular job. every employer that I talk to, every CEO that I talk to wants both. Students who think critically, who can innovate, but who also have the skills they need to perform on the job. And so what we're going to do, more than we've ever done in the past, is to infuse those liberal arts skills into all of our majors across the campus so that we're producing better accountants and better nurses and better foresters and better social workers and better educators because they have a more thorough grounding in the liberal arts as well as excellent training in their particular disciplines and majors.
Much of the early discussion about this idea after you laid it on the table was about the majors going away, however many there were, 13 liberal arts majors.
Right.
Where does that stand now? Are they all going away, the majors? What's going to happen also to the courses that are left?
We're going to continue to teach probably 80% of the courses that we were always teaching, for sure. But at the same time, we can't continue to be all things to all people, nor should we. You know, you mentioned them already. The tuition freeze for 6 years, 20% cut in state support, 20% drop in enrollment. These things all have devastating, disruptive consequences. Now, are we cutting all 13? No, we're not cutting all 13 of those majors. Let me give you an example, for example. English department. English was on that original list a year ago this month. But English department got together and they said, well, how can we do things differently? And they have been working, I've been quite impressed with what they're doing over there. They're talking about refocusing their majors to focus on business communications, teacher preparation, and publishing. These are all areas within the discipline of English that have very clear career paths. This is fantastic. We have a student-run press associated with our English department, as a part of our English department. There's only 4 student-run presses in the country, and one of them is right here in Stevens Point. And they have in the past published 1 book a year. They're now ramping that up to publish 4 or 5 books a year. This is real-world experiences for our students who are going to graduate and go off and do the very things they've been trained to do. That's the kind of change that we are bringing about across campus. The English department is just one. I'll give you another example. Our faculty in the Department of Interior Architecture and in the Department of Graphic Design and in Art have worked together now for several months, particularly over this past summer, and decided that they should come together. This is across college lines because one is in one college and 2 are in a different college, and form a new school of design. I think this is an exceptional idea. The people I've talked to in the community are all excited about this. A new school of design is something that will attract students, something that we can sell, if you would put it that way, something that donors will be interested in. This kind of reimagining the curriculum and the programs that we're offering are all part of this idea of a new kind of regional university for the 21st century.
You mentioned a new school for design. I mentioned the early discussion was all about cutting the liberal arts majors. Mm-hmm. What about the exciting new plans you've got for new programs besides school? You've got School of Design.
Right.
And new majors.
And new majors. We've had concentrations, if you will, in marketing and finance and business administration. Those have all now been elevated to majors, which another movement in the right direction. We're in the process of developing a new major in aquaponics and aquaculture. This is the growing of fish and vegetables in the same system. They're not in the same tank, obviously, but in the same closed system. Superior Fresh is an operation about 30 miles this side of Eau Claire. It's a $20 million facility opened less than 2 years ago, run by our graduates. They produce 5,000 heads of lettuce a day. without using any soil, without using any pesticides. It's a closed system. They're growing in a greenhouse the length of 2 football fields. I've seen it. It is amazing. And when we put those 2 majors together, aquaponics and aquaculture, and combine those, we'll be the first university in the country to offer that as a major. 90% of the seafood we consume in this country is imported. We can continue to import that at a risk because the inspection systems in other countries are not nearly as sophisticated as they are in this country. And we continue to send those dollars, American dollars, overseas. Or we can start growing more of those products right here in the U.S.
I know this isn't exactly a jigsaw puzzle, but you mentioned infusing the liberal arts courses that are left into some of these new programs and existing programs. Tell me, can you be specific about that infusion? How's it going to work?
Well, that's a challenge for our faculty particularly, because they're the experts in the curriculums. We're trying to do 2 things. One, infuse those liberal arts skills into those accounting courses. Think of it this way. Imagine a young lady who graduates with an accounting degree from Stevens Point, and she goes off to gets a job in a medium-sized company, and she's doing well, and they start noticing that when there's a problem to solve, she's the one that usually has the solution to it. And she kind of moves up in the ranks, and 10 years from now, 15 years from now, she's quite successful in that company. And then the day comes when she walks into the boardroom for the first time to take her seat that she's earned. You might think of that as a success. But we think it's a success when she walks into that boardroom after having a 15-year career as an accountant in that company, and she recognizes the Picasso on the wall. Then we call that a success.
What do you envision for a timeline?
Well, since we've taken the possibility of layoff of tenured faculty off the table, there's not a hard timeline in terms of policy from the Board of Regents. But I've said to the campus publicly and on several occasions, we need to decide 2 things by the end of this semester, in the spring of 2019. We need to decide which programs we're going to eliminate and which ones we're not. It's no longer a question for the Board of Regents since it doesn't involve the layoff of tenured faculty. We've been talking about this for a year now, and so it's time to have some closure. There's been at least 5 different reports prepared from various groups on campus with a lot of input from everybody. Where we would like to get is to a conclusion on that question that the departments involved agree with, and that our shared governance agree with, and that the administration agrees with. But we have to make changes. We cannot continue. It's a very simple concept. Our expenditures and our revenue have to match, just like at home, just like your checkbook at home. You can't spend more than you take in. So there has to be some change for sure. But we need to make some decisions by the end of this semester about those programs. The second decision I'm asking the campus to come to a conclusion with by the end of this semester is the reorganization among our colleges and our departments and our disciplines. How many colleges we're going to have and what disciplines are going to be in which college. Now, we won't have all the details worked out. We won't know who's going to be in that office and who's going to be in that office. We won't know how all the labs are going to align. But conceptually, we should come to a conclusion on that question as well. So in the fall, when school starts, we're looking to the future. We're looking to build what we're going to build and move past the stress and the chaos that has been a result of all these issues that we're trying to deal with and decisions we're trying to make.
Already, since your early announcement of this vision, the plans evolved. Tenured faculty aren't going to be laid off now. Some of the liberal arts majors you talk about cutting aren't going to be cut. It sounds to me like you and the administration still have an open mind about how all this is going to turn out.
We absolutely do. we still want to make some decisions. We have to make some decisions, but we want to make that in concert with our shared governance groups, where everybody has a voice. We probably won't, at the end of the day, not everybody's going to agree on everything. That's just not the nature of an organization with, 1,000 employees and 7,700 students. But can there be some consensus? Can there be some general coming of, generally we agree on this. We don't like these details over here, but that's where we're trying to get, John.
University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point, the UW System's Star of the North, with a world-class College of Natural Resources and a vision for the 21st century regional university. Ideas certainly worthy of the green chair. Chancellor Bernie Patterson, thank you for helping us tell the story of UW Stevens Point, and good luck in making your future come true. I'm John Lobbs for WisconsinEye. Thank you for joining us for this edition, and I hope you'll look forward, as I do, to our next edition of Bright Ideas from the Green Chair.